We are excited to be joined today by Mr. Deven Richardson. He is the Director of Business and Community Development with the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. And he is joining us today to talk a little bit about the new Opportunity Zone application that is launched, going from the 1.0 to the 2.0. So he'll be able to answer any questions about that new application process, kind of walk through the criteria and the requirements for that submission. So really appreciate you being here with us, Devin, and I will pass it over to you.
Well, thank you, Sydney. I appreciate the warm introduction, and I'm excited to present today. So, as Sydney said, my name is Deven Richardson, and I joined the cabinet last September as a director. And I feel honored to be able to actually give this presentation today on opportunity zones and the 2.0 application process, and also to talk a little bit about how your community can benefit from the program. So the agenda today. So today's presentation is going to cover first the Opportunity Zone 2.0 team. I'm going to provide an overview of opportunity zones just in case you might need a little refresher of what they are. Then talk about key changes in the 2.0 framework, and then talk about the specific nomination process for Kentucky. So to begin to just put some faces to names, we have a dedicated team already assembled to support you. I'm going to be leading the initiative as the director, and I have a fierce team behind me. So, key contacts are going to include myself as the director, Scott Mosley, who's a project manager, Amy Mills with our sites and buildings team, Keaton Lowe from our research team, Christine McNeil, who is part of our innovation team, and then Cameron, who is a communications manager. Each of them are going to have distinct roles throughout the application process, but at any time, if you contact any one of us, we'll be able to answer any Opportunity Zone 2.0 related questions. So some of you might have the question of what is an opportunity zone? So to begin, opportunity zones, or I like to call them OZs, were actually established back in 2017 from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to help aid economically distressed communities. But this has changed significantly thanks to from 1.0 to 2.0 due to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And now these zones are going to be permanent and they're going to give states the opportunity to nominate new zones on a recurring basis. The new zones are going to officially go into effect on January 1st, 2027. And just to note here, just as I just said, it's not going to be a one-off program anymore as it was in the 1.0 program. States are going to be able to redesignate the opportunity zones every 10 years from this point forward. So it's going to be long lasting rather than just a one-off sort of initiative. And these opportunity zones are also going to give the state a really unique and special ability. It's going to give Kentucky the power to really influence where private capital flows and steer it towards priority regions and industries rather than just having it be left purely to market forces. And Kentucky, too, also is going to have a very unique advantage because there's a significant new emphasis on rural areas and rural opportunity zones. They're going to receive enhanced incentives that create a scalable way for smaller communities to compete for major capital. Most notably, the rural opportunity zones and the rural areas are going to receive a 30% basis step up rather than a 10% basis step up compared to that of the 1.0 program. So now we're going to talk just a little bit about the nomination process and what we're doing as a cabinet. So as of right now, we are collecting recommendations for eligible census tracts. The Department of Treasury released the actual official tracts that Kentucky will be able to choose from back in early April. And we're going to have the ability to choose a total of 136 possible zones. So we're going to be collecting recommendations from local partners to inform the governor's decision, and he's going to be the one to make the final nomination to Treasury. So the window for the governor to make his final designation is starts July 1st, and then after that he'll have a 90-day period. So it'll end on September 29th, I believe, if my math is correct, to make the final sort of selection for opportunity zones in Kentucky. And as I mentioned before, after these final submissions are put in, then it will be 10 years again before you can reapply. And we've established specific criteria too that we're going to be actually using to evaluate each of the applications. And these include a variety of different things, and each of them are going to be heavily considered. So the first one, of course, is going to be federal guidelines. So we really want all the potential tracks to make sure that make sure the specific tracks meet the federal guidelines outlined by the Department of Treasury. Number two is infrastructure and public safety access. So you should make sure that you have accessible roadways and existing infrastructure. and then also that you're located within a reasonable distance of first responders. Make sure too that you are aligned with our statewide and regional strategies, and also too that you have some sort of site readiness already prepared. So make sure that the areas or the tracks that you select have some sort of near-term project development, and then also ideally that they should be shovel ready. Then, of course, you need to make sure that the tracks itself and the communities need to be prepared to show that it has credible market interest. So basically be able to explain how it can be used and how you can make it marketable to private investors. Then also make sure that you have some data on the available labor and workforce, and then also a list of local financial and policy commitments so that can be like local incentives. And then to be able to communicate directly in the application that you have some sort of goal or or you can describe some anticipated outcome for what you want the track to be. So these are going to be sort of the key things we're looking for in the application as we're scoring it and determining whether or not we want to present it to the governor for the final submission. So the application itself, what you're actually going to be submitting. So it's now live, it can be downloaded, and it is accessible on our website. So the application itself is a one Excel-based application, and it's paired with a Word document as sort of supporting material. So it outlines sort of key terms, definitions. Also, it comes with a checklist so that you can make sure that you have everything that you need whenever you submit the application. It's just a way to sort of help communities as they're going through the application. So key data and each of the tabs is going to include like job wage impacts. It's also going to include transportation access, socioeconomic data. So there's going to be a lot of different things included in each of the tabs. So make sure that you complete each section. And then last but not least, too, I want to make sure that we're absolutely clear here that just because you submit an application does not guarantee that you're actually going to be designated. Each of the applications are going to be scored based off of those criteria, and we're going to make decisions based on how well you score in each of those criteria. And then, of course, the workbook structure itself. So the workbook or the Excel workbook has several components. Each of them will need to be completed to be considered. So these are going to be tabs related to track details such as the conditions, assets, readiness, and strategy. Site details, which is another section that's included on that. And then also there's going to be required attachments that I'll go over a little bit later in the presentation. And this is going to include things like endorsement letters and other things. So for track detail, so the track detail itself will require a great deal of information, as I mentioned before, and we really want the communities to think deeply about how the tracks that they are selecting can utilize the program to the fullest. For each track submitted, we would like the communities to include the track details itself, the transportation and infrastructure information, be able to talk about like your highest and best use sort of scenario and how your zone itself is compatible with Kentucky's regional growth strategy or statewide growth strategy rather. Then also to have a list of like your workforce and training partners, local incentives that can actually be paired with the state incentives, and also be able to showcase just some sort of like policy commitment in general that you're welcome to designate something as an opportunity zone. And then also too, for impact, so we like to sort of make sure that you are thinking whenever you're filling out sort of like this narrative section, I like to call it, be able to talk about why you're selecting this tract in general, because if you can sit down and think about why you want this certain tract to be designated, you'll be able to make a stronger application. And then, of course, too, there's going to be a commitment to quarterly reporting compared to last time. Under the 1.0 program, there was very little, I would say, um, there wasn't much of a requirement to report to the federal government. But in this 2.0 program, the Department of Treasury has made clear that they want some sort of reporting mechanism from the states to provide to the Department of Treasury to keep up with how opportunity zones are going in local areas. So the cabinet is going to be coming up with a compliance mechanism to require communities to do some sort of quarterly reporting to us about if projects or companies utilized opportunity zones. And then I mentioned before, some of the about the attachments. So there's going to be a couple of them that we require. So we're going to require some track maps, evidence for demand. So think of past projects that might have utilized opportunity zones and that can you keep utilizing opportunity zones if they qualify for the 2.0 program. An endorsement letter. So something from a local community leader just showcasing that they want to designate this area as an opportunity zone. Once again, a list of local incentives, and then just some site readiness and environmental summaries. And then in terms of application tips and what I recommend to really look at as you're sort of going through the application, number one is try to be evidence-based. So try to cite data and facts and documented examples rather than relying too much on the narrative. While the narrative is important, if you're able to combine that narrative and then back that up with facts and data or documented examples, it'll make for a stronger application. Also, too, just be able to talk about near-term investability. So be able to showcase that the zone, the place that you're selecting has the ability to take projects very, very quickly. That'll look a little bit stronger in the application. Of course, to be able to make sure to showcase that it has credible market demand and that it actually aligns with sort of your targeted industries in your area. So, for example, if you're a location that is really sort of in desperate need of housing, and that's something an industry that you would want to target, make sure that the application that you're submitting sort of indicates that you want this opportunity zone to be something focused and related to commercial housing and that it aligns with the application. Just make sure things are lined up. And we don't want to see something along the lines of we want this tract to be used for housing and then it's in the middle of like an industrial park or something like that. Show a local commitment. So again, be able to show that you have support for opportunity zones, whether it be through policy actions, different partnerships, and then also just local incentive funding. And then last but not least, one of my last sort of, I guess, recommendation would be to avoid some incomplete placeholders. Don't overstate readiness without any documentation because we're going to be able to see whether or not like a site itself has everything that it needs, and we're going to be able to check if it matches exactly what you submit. So just make sure that you're honest and forthright in your application. And then just in terms of how to submit, so all the documents are going to be submitted on our website. But of course, if you have any technical difficulties or maybe you can't figure out how to sort of navigate it, you can also send it to my email. That it's my first and last name. So deven.richardson@ky.gov. And that can also be found on our website. So the application itself should also it can be submitted by pretty much anyone, whether it be local EDOs, consultants, or local leaders. But we want to make sure that one application is submitted per tract. So for if there's a scenario where there's one tract that goes through multiple communities, try to get together with other local community leaders in that area to submit one application for that one tract. And then the firm deadline for this is going to be May 29th, 2026. This is to make sure that we have enough time to evaluate all of the applications, put it in a package for the governor, and then give it to him so he has that 90-day window to be able to evaluate and select which places he wants to designate as opportunity zones. And then, of course, we have our website. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, it'll take you directly to our Opportunity Zone page where it has a timeline. It has the application itself, the deadline, and then also just different resources that can be helpful to you all if you have any questions surrounding opportunity zones. And of course, it has a question box. So that way, if you have any questions after this webinar, if something comes up about the application, you could submit the question there and it'll go directly to everyone on my OZ team. And then there will be another upcoming webinar similar to this one with the Kentucky League of Cities. So if you have any questions about, if you can't get your question answered today and you'd like to hear more information about opportunity zones, you're more than welcome to join that as well. It'll be a presentation similar to this one, and I'm happy to answer any questions that might come from that as well. So with that, I want to give the last 15 minutes to you all to just answer any questions or just hear any comments or anything about opportunity zones. So with that, I'll open it up. Yes, Troy.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So this will be my first time ever applying for this for my city. Can you just give me an example of geographically of how big some of these opportunity zones are, how small they are, or a street, a section of a town, a whole county, a whole industrial park? What what's the geographical limitations?
Honestly, I always hate giving this answer, but it depends. Every sort of track is different. So there's a resource out there. It's called Novogradic, and you can go specifically to Kentucky and then type in your city, town, or county, and you can see how big a tract it is. I've seen some of them where the tract itself might just be like a small part of a downtown, and it can range to like maybe a whole section of an industrial park. It really does range. And the best way to figure out the actual sort of size of what the different tracks that you have you seen which tracks are available for you, Troy? Have you gotten a chance to look at that yet? Might I ask you?
No, I have not.
Okay. So if you go to our not our website, if you go to that site, Novogradac, it's Novogradac. Type that in and then 2.0 map. It'll take you straight to their website and you can type in your city, county, and then also you can type in the whole state of Kentucky if you want to, just to see the actual range of opportunity zones that are out there. And it breaks it down by each tract, whether or not it's rural or non-rural. And it shows you just how big they are. And it also lists how many eligible zones you might have just for your city or county. Does that answer the question? Does that help?
Yes, yes, that helps a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, it looks like might be a question in the chat. Let me see here. Oh, thank you. Oh, no, Sydney posted the map. Thank you, Sydney.
Yeah, I mean, that's what all we're talking about.
Are there any other questions or comments or thing or resources that I could help provide so you all can take a look at what zones you might actually be eligible for? I'm going to talk a little bit about like the differences in the 1.0, the 2.0 program, go more in depth. Or if that was pretty straightforward, I can give you guys your time back. I don't mind to.
Devin, do you mind to put your email in the chat? That way, if people have follow-up questions or whoever the best email is, that way
Sure.
we can leave folks with the best contact too.
Sure. So I just dropped it into the chat. So it's my first name, my last name at ky.gov. So if there's a separate question that you have, you can just email me directly. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
No problem at all. And also too, if you end up having if you have any questions about like the application too, I'm also happy just to talk through that as well and give you some rationale about like why we're being a little bit more thorough this time. Always happy to answer questions. So please reach out to me if you have any.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Devin. And now everyone has your contact information. And of course, let us know if there's anything we can do.
Will do. Thank you guys so much for having me, Sydney. I really appreciate you making some time out so I could get this out to the local communities. It's really helpful. We really want to make sure that we give the local communities as much knowledge and as much information as possible for the application process because it can be a really beneficial program and bring in tons of investment to your area and help with a whole range of projects. So thank you for giving me the space to come on and talk about this today.